Hey guys, this is Coach Mitch Schwartzman, and I want to talk to you guys today about vitamin D. And vitamin D really seems like an obscure, kind of tiny little subject, not even worth doing a video about. But really, if you don't have enough vitamin D, it could be causing some pretty profound and major negative impacts on your performance or just even how you're feeling. So that's kind of why we're talking about it today. It's going to be not too science heavy. But really, I'm going to brush over some things. So the best way, if you want to dive in deeper, what I would advise doing is just clicking and pausing the video and reading through maybe some of the longer text entries that are on here. And unfortunately, because it is a video, you can't click on the link and follow some of the sources. But really, I've input some of the URLs. So if you just want to type it out and kind of follow that rabbit down the hole, you're more than welcome. So first thing, right away, I want to just talk to you about vitamin D is not actually even a vitamin. It's what's called a prohormone. So when we have it in our body, it causes a sort of a chain reaction that releases some hormones within the body that can either, and if that's happening in the right amount, it can actually really help us keep us healthier and improve performance and all that good stuff. But if it's not happening enough, it can hold us back, and that's really what we're talking about today. There we go. So vitamin D, we're going to talk about why we should care, who needs it, and some good sources to get that vitamin D from. So why should we care? With enough vitamin D, we're going to be able to increase our muscle mass and our strength. We're going to be able to have denser, stronger bones. We'll be able to improve our immune system function and also have better mental health and cognitive function. So those are some big hitters, and so it's not that the more vitamin D we have that all of those go up and up, but it's if we don't have enough vitamin D, we might really be hurting in some of those categories. So that's why those are some reasons why it's so important. So to increase our muscle mass and strength, right? Take a look at that first bullet there. So when so in that study, they had subjects taking in additional vitamin D, and over 8 weeks, it showed an increase in power through vertical jump height at 10-meter sprint times and strength through improved bench press and back squat. And in that second bullet there, you can see that they did a study on NCAA athletes, and they found that a little bit over 1/3 of them had abnormal or low vitamin D levels. So they needed extra vitamin D. So if that study is correct, then at least 1 in 3 of the people watching this video are going to need some additional vitamin D. It also notes that races with darker skin tones are a little bit of a disadvantage. When that sunlight comes in and that radiation comes in different wavelengths, it's the UVB, the ultraviolet B radiation that comes in, and it interacts and it stresses out they're called melanocytes within our skin. And the stress on those melanocytes then causes sort of a chain reaction that leads to our body producing its own vitamin D. And when your skin is a little bit darker, naturally, it's darker because you have more melanocytes within the skin. And so that same sunlight exposure does not stress the skin out quite as much as maybe a lighter skinned or a paler individual. So that's something to watch out for there. Again, that vitamin D is going to help us have denser, stronger bones. So that helps us prevent injuries, not only as we're maybe young, active athletes, but the denser and stronger our bones are now, as we go into older age, that helps us avoid osteoporosis, osteopenia, and maybe some of the issues that come with that. And that first bullet there is, again, just another reminder that some of our darker skinned individuals with more melanocytes within their skin, they're going to be at a disadvantage and a higher risk for maybe some weaker bones or bone related breaks or injuries. And then that second bullet there is talking about the sort of the process of vitamin D and how it interacts with calcium to help us have stronger bones. And if you think about maybe just like a gallon of milk that you see at the store, a lot of times you'll see that it's fortified with vitamin D. And so with that fortification, they put vitamin D in the milk ahead of time because they know that having the vitamin D right there with the calcium, those combined, those two factors help us take the calcium from the milk and have an easier time of getting it into our bones. And so we've got stronger bones. Vitamin D is going to improve our immune system function. And I'm not going to go in too deep on this slide. I'm just going to say that each of those 3 bullet points is going to cover this fact, is that our vitamin D levels help our immune system function better. And that goes from everything from sort of the common cold to actually cancer. Our individuals with cancer have a higher are at higher risk for low vitamin D levels. So if you want to look into that more, just pause it now and read through those and maybe follow some of those links as well. Improving our vitamin D levels has been shown to improve our mental health and our cognitive function. That first bullet, there's a little bit more about cognitive function and how vitamin D is going to help prevent or mitigate any Alzheimer's or dementia that may occur. And if you pause now and kind of read through that, it talks about that relationship a little bit more than I care to. And then that second bullet, it talks about the relationship between low vitamin D levels and military individuals who have committed suicide. So what they did was they looked back at the blood tests for individuals who had committed suicide, and they found that they had low vitamin D levels. So the lower your vitamin D levels are, it tends to be that the human body has an increased risk for anxiety and depression and other mental health stressors. So by having enough vitamin D, we keep our mood better and maybe prevent some of those mental health issues as well. So who needs it? Maybe if you some of those slides that we just talked about, maybe if you've struggled with your strength levels, or if you have had several broken bones, or if you have dark skin, I don't know, maybe those extra melanocytes within the skin, or if you've had mental health issues, maybe if you have that stuff going on, maybe you have low vitamin D levels, but really you just got to go talk to a doctor. You got to go get some blood work done probably. And even through the research I did looking at several different sites, I found some numbers that were all over the place. So I would really encourage you guys to go check with your doctor if and when you can. And so I put up a couple of bullets in there looking at some numbers that I found through research. But again, the message for this slide and this whole presentation really is you may need to go check with the doctor on these things. Okay, so let's say you're convinced that you need to raise your vitamin D levels. What are your best sources? Well, starting with sunlight exposure is not a bad way to do it. It's free. You can combine other benefits like going outside and practicing your sport or getting in some exercise outside. So you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So going outside and getting sun exposure is a good way to go. And you can even mimic that. They have sun lamps that have these light bulbs that are going to help produce that UVB radiation that we talked about earlier. That you can use anytime, any place. And it's especially good if you live in an environment like maybe like a Seattle or a London, England, where you're not getting as much sun exposure and there's maybe more rain. So you can use a sun lamp. And we're going to talk about food on the next slide, but also supplementation is an option. So they make those supplementations. And if you're going to take it, it seems that the common consensus is that if you're going to take vitamin D supplementation, you want it to be in the form of vitamin D3. And with that vitamin D3, you want to be paired with vitamin K2. And those sort of have like a synergistic effect where that K2 helps prevent that D3 from having any negative side effects within our body, such as arterial calcification. Okay, so again, food. If you're not getting sunlight, way before I get to the supplementation, I would look at my food sources. And so here's a quick little list here. It's going to give you an idea in that far in that far right column, you can see vitamin D IUs. Those are international units, which is how vitamin D is measured. So if you're convinced or you know that you have low vitamin D, you may really want to consider adding some of those foods to your diet. Guys, I hope this helps. I know it's kind of obscure, off the beaten path kind of topic, but it may be one that changes your performance and boosts your health. So let me know if you have any further questions. If you want the slide, I can email it to you. Anything like that. Let me know how I can help, guys.